When's your next meet? Who and or what got you into powerlifting? What happened with you and STG? We're back, and a little bit different this time. We're in a new YouTube channel. Just kind of wanted to separate what I'd done in the past up to what my journey is now. And I just want to say, for those of you who are tuning in, watching this video, and will be following along on this journey, I really appreciate all the support. I'm really excited for what's to come. I've already kind of planned out the next 3 to 4 videos. It's going to be a fun little journey we're going to go on, and the goal at the end of the day is to land the consistency, which I think now I'm at a point in life and where my goals and what I'm about to do is all just kind of lining up at this moment, and at the end of the day, I want to document all of it. So for today's video, we're going to be answering some questions that I had put out a Q&A on Instagram. We got a plethora of questions. It's gonna make this episode juicy. It's gonna set up the next couple videos to come as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, so we are getting warmed up for our secondary bench day. I essentially plan to answer a couple questions in between sets. So the first question that I got was, who and or what got you into powerlifting? And I think this is a great question. I get asked this quite frequently. It's kind of a culmination. So I know the exact moment when I got into powerlifting, when I was exposed to it, but I kind of want to draw back to middle school. I had started, I got into travel baseball, and then my 8th grade year, I started wrestling, and quickly realized, you have an added bonus when you're a lot stronger than your opponent. And then obviously for performance in baseball, the bigger, faster, stronger that you are, obviously the more likely you are to excel. So I essentially fell in love with the weight room starting in 8th grade. And then it got crazier once I got to high school, because I remember the first strength and conditioning session I went to, we had like a max out on bench, and I ended up maxing out at like 65 pounds. And I just remember seeing people who had barely been in the weight room, or were guys that I thought I was stronger than, or whatever the case was. I saw them hitting more weight, or getting to numbers a little bit more quickly than I was at the initial jump, and it just ignited this fire in me that carried me through my high school baseball career, got me to play college baseball, and then what carried me through my college baseball career, and this is where we kind of get into powerlifting, was I had been following Ryan Dangler, who was really big on YouTube. He still is, still making videos, but he had done a powerlifting competition, and I was very intrigued. I was like, I didn't know there was a sport where you're broken into weight classes, very similar to wrestling, but you go head to head in your weight classes and see who has the highest total between squat, bench, and deadlift. So that was my very first interaction with powerlifting. And then as soon as COVID hit, for some reason on my YouTube feed, I came across Russell Orhii, aka Russ Swole, and really saw his showmanship and the passion that he had for this sport. And it from that moment on, I've been hooked. COVID was a very monumental time in my development, because there was just a lot going on in life, obviously with the shutdowns, personal stuff, going into my master's program. And the one thing that remained constant was the home gym in the basement. My brother and I would train every single day for hours on end. And that's where my love for the sport really, really, really took off. And then about a year later, I competed in my first meet in the USAPL, went up to Appleton, Wisconsin, and the rest was kind of history from there. I moved to Tennessee, got into USPA, I did 3 nationals with them, or 2 nationals with them, 3 nationals with them, and then switched over to Powerlifting United and just recently competed at their regionals and nationals this past year. So it's been a heck of a journey. I've loved every single moment of it. I foresee myself competing in this sport for years to come. So the next question I got was, when's your next meet? And that right now is a little bit under wraps. We're just gonna leave it at that. I plan on talking about this in the next video, and we'll kind of outline what the game plan is going to be moving forward. I will say, sorry, that might be a little bit long-winded. This past training week very much reinforced how bad I want to hit the platform. So I'll explain it next week in next week's video, but very excited to talk about what that journey is going to look like. So the most asked question that I got on Instagram, and this came from numerous people, is what happened with you and STG, and any plans to do a clothing brand again in the future. So, gosh, this is a very loaded question, and I know I've done a pretty bad job of kind of outlining what exactly happened on Instagram. I just kind of made an announcement. This is another topic when I said I had some videos planned out for the future. This is a topic that I will address not next week's video but the week after. Okay, the next question was, sorry, I'm a little winded from bench. Are you gonna have guests featured eventually? Yes. That's honestly like why I enjoy the fitness industry so much, and what I want to do in the future is continue to have people be a part of the journey, you know, be able to allow people to share their testimonies. But for me too, it's like I've always been about this social media journey, about documenting, and I think when you do a lot of this stuff and you're able to record like the stories on the podcast, or you know, be able to do some like meetup lifts, whether it's with my athletes or friends or whatever the case is, it's a big reason of like what I do, and why I don't care about the likes, the engagement, anything like that. I just truly enjoy building relationships and being able to provide a platform where people feel like they can share their testimonies, their stories, and you know, you can connect in those ways. So yeah, the goal is moving forward is, you know, whether we're gonna have people come drop in at this gym or I'm gonna go over to other gyms, you know, when I'm traveling, whatever the case is, the goal is definitely to have more people featured. Okay, what kind of lifts do you prefer, machines over free weights? Question mark. So obviously what I prefer is free weights. You know, powerlifting is all free weights. And I also think too, you know, having a home gym and then just how I train, like I love free weights. You can do so much with free weights. But that's not to say I don't love machines either. But I just think in terms of like a multi-use standpoint, free weights you can do so much with, where machines tend to be one movement specific. You know, obviously you've got the cable machines or you get the up down, like I have it in my gym, but those tend to be a bit more specific and less multi-use, especially when I'm thinking from a home gym standpoint. But that's not to say is like when I go to public gyms and train, or when I am training at home, it's not that I don't miss those types of machines, but if I had to pick a preference, it's definitely free weights. Okay, what's something most people don't see behind the scenes of your grind? I don't think people see the mundaneness and like the level of like locked in I get. I'd say the only person that gets to see like the true me is Michaela. The big thing, like most, like you can speak about this for any powerlifter, is you really only see either what they're posting on social media. So like a lot of times it's the big lifts, and then you see them on meet day. You have some vlog, you kind of get a little bit of a behind the scenes, but never to the level of like how locked in I get. And I think some people mistake it when they like hear about the things that I do in terms of like, you know, my eating regimen, my rest, you know, my active rest days, and just how I go about life and how I conduct myself. I think some people think I take it a bit too serious, so they feel like I'm putting too much pressure on myself, and that could not be like further from the truth. I just think that, you know, I handle my business very professionally, and I'm gonna hold it to the highest standard. And you know, it may not be the most like profound way of going about it, but I do take a lot of pride in how I go about my business day by day. Both like getting up and going to work, coming home, doing my lift, getting my rest in, like getting my meals all good to go for the week. I hold myself to a very high standard. I understand that, but why would I dedicate so much time? Like, especially for powerlifting, I don't make a dime off of it. Like, I'm paying all this money to travel, to compete, and a lot of people are like, why are you putting yourself through that? But at the end of the day, it's like I'm in the pursuit of trying to find the absolute baddest, strongest version of myself. And I understand that journey that I'm on. And I know I'm not gonna get there if I'm, you know, going 50%, 70%, 80%. Some people are okay with that. Some people are okay with complacency and just, I don't know, like it drives me nuts. I don't understand it, but some people definitely mistake how I conduct my business, how I hold myself to a high standard for a lot of misconceptions. And that's just something that nobody has seen besides Michaela. And it works for us. It works for me. It's gotten me to where I'm at. I think the next meet that I do, the next year you're gonna see out of me is going to be the most locked in, most like best version of myself that we've ever seen. And that's ever come to a platform. So, you know, I'm just excited for moving forward and what's to come, but that is definitely something that nobody sees, is just my level of like locked in, crossing my T's, dotting my I's, and just executing. Okay, what's the biggest challenge you've faced in your journey so far? So I'm going to keep this fitness specific, because if I want life, baseball career, whatever, there'd be a lot to choose from. So we're gonna keep it on the fitness side of things. And this is coming from someone who has bombed out of 2 meets in the 4 years that I've been competing. I don't, it's gonna be crazy to say, I don't consider either of those the biggest challenge that I've faced. I would actually say the biggest challenge I've faced in my journey so far is this past nationals. It was a very, very hard pill to swallow after competing at nationals for PLU in New Jersey this past year, because I put it all out there. I followed everything to a T. My nutrition was dialed in. Travel went accordingly. Weight cut was perfect. Everything I could control, I felt like I did. And meet day made me feel weak, and it made me feel extremely sick after competing. I've lost some really bad baseball games. Like I said, I've bombed out of 2 powerlifting meets. Nothing has quite felt so sickening like this past nationals. And I think just the nail in the coffin was hitting my deadlift opener, loading up about 33 pounds more on top of it. So we went from 540 to 573, which would have been a meet PR, something that in my mind should have been there. And I got stapled twice. Not necessarily stapled, but technique and strength was just not there. Overall execution of squat and bench was piss poor, and I just remember like the meet was done. It was probably done within 3 hours, and just sitting in that back room. And like I said, I've bombed out twice, and trust me, I know that feeling. It's extremely embarrassing. It's a very difficult thing to let yourself experience, and the feeling of just not feeling like I was enough or had done enough, or just that overall feeling of being weak, that day has just been burned in my mind. And I had to, like I said, I've had to make some really difficult decisions since nationals. Some things came up and I had to deal with them, and I've had to, pick myself up and move myself forward. And I think that's, like I said, like in any part of your journey, any setback that you have, any failure that you have, like I've played baseball. You're successful 30% of the time, and if you are, like in the majors, like you're a Hall of Famer. Very similar in powerlifting is you train all this time and you have a total of 9 minutes, maybe 2 times a year, to go on that platform and execute to your highest standards, where you're maxing out on all 3 lifts in a matter of hours apart from each other. I'm in a very high stakes sport, but challenges are inevitable, but they're all part of your testimony. And I gotta give a shout out to Connor Olson on that statement, because he's been a really good friend of mine for the last 4.5 years, and I remember him telling me that, and how he had spoke about his testimony as well, as those setbacks, they don't define you. They are all part of your testimony and how you come back from them. So that's how I've always looked at it, but that is definitely the most challenging moment in my journey so far. Okay, if you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting out in powerlifting, what would it be? This is something that I really tell all of my athletes, is you have to be in it for the marathon and not the sprint. And that's the most cliche thing I feel like anybody could say, but it's the most true thing, especially when it comes to health. I've been in those moments, like cutting weight, and you're like, man, I need to lose 10, 15 pounds in X amount of weeks. And, I think it's normal to be in day-to-day life and feel like you need to make a snap change and hope to max out the benefits or max out the results in the shortest period of time. And, I know some of those things, they work for the short term, but, what I'm all about and what I try to preach to everybody is you need to create a sustainable lifestyle to stay healthy. And that's something that I live by. That's something I tell every single one of my athletes that come on board with me, is you have to be okay with this being a marathon and not a sprint. If we see results right off the bat, fantastic. But at the end of the day, we're looking to make long-term changes, work towards the long-term success. And, the small wins add up to the big wins. And, playing baseball, being in powerlifting, it's very much a day-to-day, very mundane, very drawn out, both type of sports, but also that's just life. Is like, you have to be able to win the day-to-day. And that's what I tell everybody. That's what I would tell a beginner is, have fun, like do stuff that you're truly passionate about. Like, it doesn't make sense to me when people continue to push themselves through the ringer in powerlifting if they're completely burned out and not enjoying it. But that goes for anything in life, is, chase after the things that make you feel alive, and just know, like, you're not expected to be the big time success right off the bat. If it happens, great. Like, obviously you want to put your best foot forward and give everything you've got to the things that you love, but at the end of the day is understand that it's okay if it's a long process. Like, you have to be okay with that. And I think as long as you love what you're doing and you're seeing those small steps along the way, that's the biggest success of them all. Last question I've got is, are you still coaching and bringing on athletes? And the question is, yes, I am. Whether you're a powerlifter, someone just trying to make some overall health adjustments to their life, that is definitely something that I am still very heavily doing. My roster's been, I feel like everybody says this, oh, I've only got like 1 spot left, or my roster's expanding. I have brought on quite a few athletes recently, and I'm stoked. I'm very excited to be a part of their journeys and help them get to where they want to be, and provide them, the support and the knowledge that I can. And yes, definitely, I am still bringing on athletes and coaching. So if it is something, whether it's powerlifting or, like I said, you're a retired athlete and you're coming off your college career, your high school career, at the end of the day, yes, I'm still coaching. I love every second of it. This wraps up this week's YouTube video. I had a PR training week. It was stuff, like there were some numbers that were hit that I was not expecting to hit. Very excited about them, but obviously the job's not finished. So in the next video, I'm gonna be talking about what's to come for my next meet, and then after that, we'll be talking about what I'm gonna be doing moving forward and what the goals are heading into 2026 and to cap out this year. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for all your support. If you could hit the like button, I'd greatly appreciate that. If you could share it with a friend, tell them about the video, or just send it to someone. Like I said, I greatly appreciate it. But at the end of the day too, is I'm not necessarily in this for all the likes and the views and stuff. Like if this gets 2 views, I'm cool, man. Like this is me documenting my journey. There were some, I really enjoyed answering these questions, and obviously when I look back at this, I'm gonna understand the time of life that I was in. But moving forward, we've got some very big plans in store. So the goal is we gotta keep executing. We gotta get back to the drawing board, and that's all gonna start once this training session's over. We turn the page to next week's training. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week in the YouTube channel. I don't really have an outro. I really need to make an intro, but I don't know what to say. Let's get after it. We'll see y'all in the next one.